And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Post Wrestling Cafe for this week's Cafe Hangout.
It's John Pollock and Ting here with you for the next.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, everyone's
doing
here.
that. I keep
It's okay, Way.
forgetting to mute ourselves. Sorry. Okay.
We have lots to discuss on today's show. We're going to be joined momentarily by Nate Milton, one of the kings of sport himself, joining us. We're going to preview Elimination Chamber that is coming up on Sunday. We'll get through some of the news. And, well, first of all, let's bring in Nate. Brother Nate, how are you on this fine Thursday afternoon?
What's going on, brothers? And in the words of American poet Andre 3000, happy Valentine's Day. Every day's the 14th.
Man, I always love, you've just got an endless supply of quotes just for every occasion.
It serves me no purpose other than podcast introductions.
Oh, it's fantastic, Nate. It's like your calling card.
Literally.
How you guys doing today?
We're doing well. We do have some news right off the top here, which just broke about a half an hour or so ago. This coming from TMZ Sports. So I'm going to read the story because, Nate, I think you're hearing this for the first time. WWE superstar Jimmy Uso, one half of the popular Usos tag team, was arrested after a drunken dispute with cops in Detroit, TMZ Sports has learned. The 33-year-old, real name Jonathan Solofo Fatu, and his wife, fellow WWE superstar Naomi, were pulled over near downtown Detroit after cops say Naomi was driving the wrong direction on a one-way street. According to our police sources, cops say their 2018 Dodge Journey reeked of booze, so they ordered Naomi out of the car. We're told that while Naomi talked to cops, Jimmy got out of the car, despite commands from police, and took off his shirt and jacket and squared up like he wanted to fight. We're told the officer took out his taser because he was scared for his safety. Jimmy ultimately settled down and complied with their commands. Then he was handcuffed and arrested for disorderly conduct and obstruction. He was taken to jail and later posted bond. Uso was not in Detroit for a WWE event. And it concludes by saying that the Uso brothers, multiple-time SmackDown Tag Team Champions, are scheduled to face The Miz and Shane McMahon for the title at Elimination Chamber on the weekend. Now, I did reach out to WWE just momentarily, just recently, and they sent me the following statement. It's a pretty brief statement, and it just states, quote, Jonathan Fatu is responsible for his own personal actions. So that is the extent of the statement. And I did inquire if they are still scheduled for the live events this weekend, and that was the response I got. So to be determined what their status is. But just hearing that, Nate, off the top, would you expect Jimmy Uso and or Naomi to potentially be removed from Sunday's card as a result of this? Or could this be a case where they will just go forward with their bookings this weekend?
Ooh, it's a tricky one because just hearing that story for the first time, John, my immediate reaction was, just kind of viscerally being anxious. And, not to get too super political or too super real, but people of color don't have the best experience with police, even when they're complying 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So to hear, Jimmy being out of control and being aggressive towards the police, like, this could have ended a whole lot worse than it actually ended up being. So I think if you're the WWE, you definitely have to take action. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but is this the second time Jimmy's had an instance like this, or was that Jay the last time?
It was Jay the last time in January of 2018. DWI. Yeah.
Okay. So even still, though, I would think this close to the show, like maybe it would have been different if this happened last weekend or even, as recently as Monday. But I think this close to the show, I would seriously think about either switching that match out or eliminating it altogether, because there's got to be repercussions for this. And, I love Jimmy Uso. I love the Uso brothers. I love Naomi. Like, I think she's one of the more underrated performers on the roster. But this is not a good look, especially in this climate. So, yeah, if I'm the company, I would think about sitting them down for this show.
Yeah. And again, this story is just breaking. I'm certain that the company wants to at least get Jimmy and Naomi's side of this as well. In the story, it states that the car smelled of alcohol. There was no mention that there was any open alcohol in the car itself. So, you want to get at least both sides of the story, obviously, to put it into proper context. But at the end of it, there was an arrest made. So that's that's significant right there. So the WWE, again, in their statement, just stating that Jonathan Fatu is responsible for his own actions. That's all the company is stating at the moment. So we will continue to follow that and see if it does affect any of this weekend and their involvement at the Elimination Chamber and at live events as well. Nate, as we kind of pivot over to the Elimination Chamber, it's largely been built around the 2 chamber matches, and we do have a Ronda Rousey match on Sunday. But as the road to WrestleMania gets further and further down the road, how would you assess this build up for Elimination Chamber, which typically is a notable event for them? And this seems to be one that I'm expecting a really solid chamber match from the men's side. But beyond that match, kind of give us a little gauge of where your intrigue is for Sunday's show.
Not that high. I think, other than the 2 chamber matches, really just kind of looking up and down the card, the only thing that I actually have anticipation for would probably be the Cruiserweight match with Buddy Murphy and Akira Tozawa. Just because I think that'll be a cool little matchup. But in terms of stories that actually have me invested and wanting to tune in as a fan, it feels like a lot of wheel spinning until we get on that fast track to WrestleMania, particularly when you talk about Ronda. Like that matchup with Ruby Riot, you guys talked about it on Monday. Even though it'll probably be a good match in ring, nobody buys in a million years that Ruby Riot is going to win this match. So it kind of ultimately amounts to an exhibition, a placeholder to get us to the ultimate match that we want to see, which is that 3-way with Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda. So there's a couple matches I'm intrigued by, but on the whole, I got to tell you, John, I was more interested for the last Impact pay-per-view than I am for Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. It feels like this is very much, my interest is pretty much limited to the men's chamber match. And realistically, Ronda Rousey and Ruby Riot is a segment that is the backdrop for a bigger angle involving Charlotte and or Becky Lynch that I think most expect to get involved in some form or fashion. But let's start with the men's chamber match. It is Daniel Bryan defending the championship against challengers AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, Samoa Joe, and Kofi Kingston. Way and I did a whole review of SmackDown, but what did you think of Tuesday's impromptu rebooking of the show with Mustafa Ali out and the utilization of Kofi Kingston going over an hour and establishing him as a credible challenger to replace Ali?
First of all, I think it's a good example of booking on the fly, and so often fans or commentators or critics of wrestling, like to bang on the creative teams. But for this, this is just a situation that was out of their control, and I thought they did a really good job in one night of changing the game plan, calling an audible, and reestablishing Kofi Kingston as this legitimate threat. Do I think that it's going to have lasting ramifications? Probably not. But for that one night and for Kofi going into the Elimination Chamber, I thought they did a really good job of showing us like why we should care about this guy. The moment where he's yelling at AJ Styles when AJ's telling him to stand down, and he's like, I've been here too long. I've been waiting 11 years. Like that's something fans can actually hook onto because it's a real statement. And so I'm glad Kofi's getting this little mini spotlight. I think over the length and breadth of his career, he's probably a guy that they should have done more with. But at least, he's getting this little moment now, even though I don't think for a second that, he's going to walk out of the chamber with the belt.
How would you begin to transition the New Day into singles competitors if this push continues?
This is the $1 million question, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot, for years, because to me, Big E is a guy that is tailor-made for a WWE champion. He's got the size, he's got the look, he's got the personality. He's somebody you can put on the Today Show, or somebody you could put on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel and be a good ambassador for your product. And so it baffles me that he's not somebody that they've given more of a singles run to. I understand that the New Day probably makes a bunch of money in terms of merch, but I think there's a way you can give each guy his own lane without them having to be tied at the hip. Like, I think there doesn't need to be, a turn I wouldn't want to see a turn. I think there's a story to be told where maybe Kofi and Xavier are trying to push Biggie into taking that opportunity, taking that leap, and he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to leave the group. And they're like, you don't have to turn your back on the New Day, but we don't want to limit your potential, because I do think there's and I don't want to sound like I'm throwing shade on anybody, but I guess I will toss a little bit of shade around here. We live in a world where Jinder Mahal has been world champion. So we're in a post-Jinder Mahal championship environment. And so any argument that you could tell me that Big E shouldn't be world champion or doesn't have A, B, or C to be a world champion, that's out the window. Because this is wrestling. We can tell a good storyline about anybody. We can make anybody credible if we put the time and effort in. So I definitely think Big E, to me, is somebody that in the next year or two, I would love to see elevated to that next level.
So do you not see Kofi Kingston in that role?
I think it's a little bit too late for Kofi. Like, I think we can do maybe one pay-per-view with Kofi and Daniel Bryan coming off of this story. That would be pretty cool. But in terms of, like, hell, we could even maybe do a WrestleMania with Kofi and Daniel Bryan, depending on how the fans respond to Kofi Kingston. But I don't think long-term Kofi would be the guy that you would put that belt on, strap that rocket to, just because, I think we know what Kofi Kingston is. We know kind of what his ceiling is. Whereas with Big E, I think the potential is still out there. So yeah, I'd be behind, a 2 or 3 month Kofi Kingston story involving Daniel Bryan, but long term, I don't think he's the guy.
So what you're saying, in the words of Randy Savage, is that this 1 week period is his cup of Kofi with the big time. Let's move
Nicely
on.
done.
Nate, who's winning this match? Is this a foregone conclusion that it is Daniel Bryan? And who do you see coming out of this as Bryan's challenger for WrestleMania? Because I think that's a interesting debate that you can have, because there isn't the clear-cut matchup for Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, unless you see a surprise title change in this match.
I don't see a title change. I think it's too early for that, John. Coming out of here, though, I think we get some of these guys paired off. I think AJ and Orton probably get paired off.
Yep.
I don't really want to go back to Samoa Joe and Jeff Hardy. I think there's more each guy could be doing elsewhere. But I also don't see them being Daniel Bryan's next challenger. So going back to what we were just talking about, I think I could be behind, a Kofi Kingston story. Like, let's say they give Kofi a good little run in the chamber match and there's momentum coming out of that, but Daniel Bryan still retains. Can we tell the story of this might be Kofi's only shot at this title over this 11-year career? Can we get the fans emotionally invested? Can we take the momentum from that gauntlet match and transfer it into a story that has legs up to WrestleMania? I don't know. I think there's a possibility. If this were Mustafa Ali, I think I'd go the same way. Like, I think Mustafa Ali would have been my choice for Daniel Bryan's WrestleMania opponent. So I'm going to go with his replacement and say, out of all these possibilities, I think Kofi and Daniel is where I would go next.
It seems like it's the one prime position at WrestleMania that you could see whatever their idea is now. There's enough wiggle room that you could adjust. There still is that outstanding loss that Bryan has to Mustafa Ali that hasn't been followed up on. And I can't imagine that was done completely without a plan.
Somebody on our board did mention that was the way Ali, I guess, got into the chamber in the first place.
Which?
Beating Bryan.
I'm talking about the first one, though, when Ali first beat him when he had come up from 205 Live. This was in December.
Did that not lead to anything?
I mean, it didn't lead to a title match. It was a non-title match. So,
you think they could go a 3-way route then with Kofi and Ali versus Daniel Bryan?
I have a really hard time seeing those guys involved. But I mean, there isn't that top babyface that jumps out, because the top babyface is AJ Styles that you've just finished with. I love AJ Styles, but I'm kind of tired of the AJ Daniel combination for right now. Well, that's why I still maintain I think Bryan and Ray is the match that that should be WrestleMania for me. I think that would be, it's a fresh match. It's the ultimate babyface that no matter how entertaining Bryan is, no one is booing Rey Mysterio over Daniel Bryan. Not in this incarnation. It's not the Royal Rumble from 2014 any longer. But that would be what I would go with. I think Ray has been so hot in this comeback that this would be, I think that's a great match for WrestleMania. So that's my pick. And both Ray and Andrade are curiously absent from this card, at least in the latest version, which again, that's also a feud. Maybe does that have the legs to go to WrestleMania, or has Andrade and Ray kind of dried up at this point for you, Nate?
I think it'd be a fantastic match, particularly on that stage. I think the crowd would be into it. But now that you put out the possibility of Ray and Daniel Bryan, there's only so many spots on WrestleMania, even though they find their way to get everybody on the card in one way, shape, or form. But if you're talking about maximizing your combinations, I think Ray, out of everybody, Ray and Daniel Bryan might be the one I'd be most interested in seeing. So, yeah, they could do Ray and Andrade, and it'd get a good response, but not nearly the response that Daniel Bryan and Ray would get.
Then we have the women's Elimination Chamber match. Nia Jackson, Tamina, Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, Fire and Desire, the Iconics, Bayley and Sasha Banks, and Naomi and Carmella, the winners becoming the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Let's start with you, Wei. This is, I'd say, an uphill battle for these women, and I could also see this match going on very early in the show and being far removed from the main event, which I think everyone expects to close the show.
Yeah, I do, certainly. I think they're going to have to rely on very clever combinations. I mean, I thought the women's chamber last year wasn't like, I thought it had it was fine, for what it was. And I think they relied on like really kind of creative uses of the cage to carry it. They're going to have a much tougher time this year, and I think people like Bayley and Sasha and Naomi are going to be relied upon to carry most of the load of this match. I think you're going to expect some decent usage of somebody like a Nia Jax who can do a lot of the catching. Somebody like Mandy Rose and I think Sonya Deville also might be looking to impress. I think it's a huge stage for people like them. The Iconics, I think, might have their kind of clever kind of chicken shit heel types of I don't know, things that they could do to kind of so I don't think the match is like lost. Certainly we've seen like with the women, anytime they're being placed on a major stage, they do a lot of prep to make sure that these matches come across well. So I don't think people are perhaps giving them enough credit, but certainly it's the expectations aren't as high.
Nate, how has this been built up, and what are you expecting from this match? Could it overachieve?
I think it's a solid match, best on the card. My one kind of point with this, and it speaks to what he talked about on, I believe, Rewind. Well, that's a tongue twister.
Hey Nate, you're actually breaking up like pretty badly, unfortunately, on our end. Let's just reconnect with you quickly.
Okay.
We will call Nate right back. But yeah, I'm very curious to hear what you guys in the chat room also think about this particular match. I think it's the one with kind of the most interest, just to see like how these performers will do.
Hello.
So, hey Nate. Hello.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Please continue your thought.
Okay. I was going to say, this speaks to something you and John talked about on, it was either Rewind a Raw or Rewind a SmackDown in regards to the NXT call-ups.
Yes.
And how kind of pointless they've seemed. And to me, there's two people you could have brought up if you're really serious about building up this women's tag division that would have made sense and would have made an impact. And that's Kairi Sane and Io Shirai.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that this match really could have used that buzz to have these two in, and would have greatly enhanced the match as well.
Yep. That's my one regret with this. That being said, I think it'll be a fine match. They won't put these women out there in a position to fall on their face. I think at the end of the day, though, it's either got to be Bayley and Sasha or Nia and Tamina taking this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that you could do. I could see Nia and Tamina winning this, and then they're the heels that are just running roughshod and can be Bayley and Sasha chasing as opposed to putting the titles on them immediately. unless they've got some bigger plan with Bayley and Sasha for WrestleMania facing a team from the past or some bigger idea. But yeah, those would be the two to isolate, I would say.
I think they have bigger plans for Kairi Sane and Io Shirai, at least for now. I know, like, when it comes to maybe a lot of their Japanese talent, they like to keep them down in the system for a little longer, if anything, just to let them practice English a bit more, get more comfortable with the promos. I also think, like, if you brought those two up, it would be to the benefit of this match and certainly to the division in the long run. But I also feel like now is sort of a bad time to debut NXT people.
Well, bad to debut NXT people when you have bad ideas for them, which we've seen quite a few from. Let's move on over to Ronda Rousey, Ruby Riot for the Raw Women's title. The option is there. Ruby Riot defending the Raw Women's title in the main event of WrestleMania against Charlotte Flair. I guess it's possible to happen. How long does this one go, Nate? Is this one going to be less than 5 minutes? Or do they extend this?
I could see them giving Ruby a little bit of shine before she ultimately taps out. So I'm going to say 7 minutes.
Okay.
I'll say about that too. I think people are going to sleep on this one because, you know, the outcome is so incredibly predictable. But let's remember, you know, there's going to be Charlotte ringside and a very good chance that Becky might somehow get involved into all this. So I wouldn't I don't think she'll win. I don't think Ruby will win at all. But it doesn't even matter to me. I'm more so just interested to see like the evolution of Ronda Rousey in ring and how she performs. And I think Ruby's a very capable partner for her.
Oh, I just wish Ruby was in kind of a, you know, had been more the push challenger of the month, because I think that she could have a very good match here with Ronda. This reminds me of when we went to the AEW show. This was on the night before CM Punk's fight with Mickey Gall, and it was Shayna Baszler was having a match, and Ronda Rousey actually appeared. She was backstage and came out, and
Shayna versus Heidi Lovelace.
It was Shayna Baszler versus Heidi Lovelace, and at the end of that match, it's like, you know, Shayna's showing a lot of potential, but the one I'm impressed with was Heidi Lovelace. She led the match. She was tremendous in that outing. So when she was signed, I was like, that's a great hire, and you know, she's someone that, it's not a pushed match, and they're even making that part of the story with Ruby's tweets and stuff that she's been posting. So anyway, it's a backdrop for the angle. I would assume Charlotte, and I think Becky as well. This is where you probably go off with the three of them, and then that can lead to something at Fastlane and ultimately the three-way between those three for WrestleMania. Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush versus Finn Balor in a handicap match for the Intercontinental title.
So other man could be pinned.
Yeah, Lio Rush could cause the title switch. What an awesome ending that would be. Oh my God. Nate, put some sunlight on this match for us. What are we missing out on? What are we overlooking?
I mean, the positive is we haven't heard from Lashley's sisters in a while.
Okay, there you go. That is a positive. You're right.
That is the one handicap match I would take over this one.
Oh wow.
Bobby and sisters.
Hey, Sami Zayn's not coming back alone. Maybe he's coming back with the sisters.
This match is something that I care very little about, despite liking all three of the participants. Like, I've been a fan of Lashley's for a while. I think Finn Balor should be at a higher level, and Lio Rush has a ton of potential that they're really not capitalizing on right now. Like, I enjoyed his match with Finn the other night on Raw. But I think Lashley retains. Yes, I paused on the butt so we could all envision Lashley's Gluteus Maximus.
Yeah, he's doing Molly Holly's gimmick in 2019.
Yes, he's got an ass like an amphitheater, as Trish Stratus once said.
Wow. He's got the quotables.
Yeah.
Man. Damn.
Yep. Jerry Lawler would tell you, watch it in widescreen so you can see all of it. Yeah.
But there's no reason to take the belts off of Lashley here. I think, unfortunately, this is something that's going to prolong because Finn doesn't really have a lane up because that's Seth and Brock.
Finn's got to lose all his title challenges going into WrestleMania. He lost the Universal title match. He'll lose this. Next month, he can fail to go for the Raw tag titles. And then WrestleMania will be the big one where he cuts down to 205 Live and he loses on the kickoff. That, to me, what a great story to tell. How bad is this guy?
Yeah, I think we're stuck here for a while. So get used to Lashley and Finn segments on Raw.
Remember when Finn beat John Cena? Exactly.
Not
As
really.
everyone just stares that happened like a month ago.
What do you guys see for either man at Mania? Lashley and Finn.
Oh, man, I don't see any kind of concentrated program. I think that this could be, some multi-man for the IC title, something. I don't see like a dedicated. To me, it's like WrestleMania is about the key 4 to 5 matches, and the rest are just plugging in holes to get everybody a spot. And I see Finn Balor and Lashley in the latter of just being guys that are going to be plugged into spots. They'll have roles on the show, but they're not going to be in featured matches.
Yeah, I'm expecting at least like one of these 4 between Lashley, Balor, Strowman, and Corbin, somebody being involved in the Andre Battle Royal this year. Which, if it's Finn Balor, it would be a real shame. Actually, if it's any 4 of them, I feel like it would be a bit of a shame. But you only have so many spots.
Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin in a no disqualification match. This is their best of 4006 series. This is match number 2014, and you could not possibly talk me into looking forward to this match, Nate. Lashley and Finn Balor with Lio Rush is infinitely more interesting to me than this latest combination of these two. I wish instead of these 2 matches, we were getting just give me Gable and Rude against the Revival. If we're just filling time, give me 20 minutes of those guys. I'm down. I don't know. These 2 matches do nothing for me, these additions, but maybe you feel differently.
I mean, or if we're just filling time, why don't we do the tag match with Strowman and Kurt and run that back? Because it's not great, but it's better than the one-on-one with Braun and Corbin. Well,
they added the no disqualification stipulation to this match, so it certainly opens it up that this is where Kurt could get involved, because that seems to be, and Drew McIntyre as well, who is not on the show. All our favorites coming together.
That could be where they're headed for at WrestleMania. Just one match with everybody you don't care about. Make that the bathroom break.
That's the Battle Royal.
Yeah. The fact that this is no DQ, I think maybe raises my expectations a little bit. If I were them, I would keep this one short and sweet. A lot of like crazy stunts in the crowd. I think a lot of bells and whistles in order to make this Baron Corbin match palatable.
Some wild Braun stunt.
Yeah. Porta potties everywhere.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Maybe Nicholas shows back up.
Oh, Nicholas.
He might make a return.
Maybe Kevin Owens will be back with in the porta potty.
Yeah, maybe.
The bowler.
But no, Nicholas, I could see some type of cameo from him again.
The Miz and Shane McMahon against the Usos for the SmackDown tag titles. What have you thought about the build-up for this match, Nate?
I really like Miz and Shane together.
They have a weird chemistry that's definitely growing on me. I'm with you.
Yeah, like they fit for whatever reason. The match I'm not exactly looking forward to for that Shane McMahon hot tag. But the storyline leading up to it has been pretty fun. Assuming we do get this match, and unless Jimmy's issues affect it, I would expect for Shane and Miz to retain, because I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at the point where we get the turn yet. And I think their turn is going to come from losing the titles, and I don't think we get it here.
Even before, the news breaking today, I wouldn't have expected the Usos to win this one to take the titles. I think, yeah, absolutely right. They're still telling this longer story with Shane and Miz that I assume will culminate at WrestleMania or continue all the way at least until Mania.
Well, then you want to be starting it soon.
Well, they kind of are. You mean the breakup?
If you feel like
they could continue as a tag team and maybe do the breakup at WrestleMania or even beyond that. But either way, they need to keep the belt in order for that to happen. I hope the Usos are still going to be a part of this match, because they need to be in this match, I think, in order for this match to have any chance of being good, right?
And I like the segment on SmackDown.
Yeah. So I kind of look forward to it, because I think the Usos are the best tag team in the company right now.
And then rounding out the announced matches, which it would not surprise me if they add a match or 2 on here, because they do have the kickoff as well.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't on this show.
A lot of people aren't on the show, and I mean, granted, you time out the matches. The men's chamber, that's going to be a long match, and the women's one, we know it's going at least 2025 just because of the entrances. But we got Buddy Murphy, Akira Tozawa for the Cruiserweight title, and I mean, I hate to be a broken record, but I think this is going to be the exact same as we get every month, where they're going to have a tremendous match, and it's going to have you know, even if the crowd is into it, which they typically are for the 205 live matches now at these pay-per-views, it's just kind of there to be your kind of fun kickoff match.
Storyline wise, I don't know how much there really is to comment on, but I mean, seeing how Mustafa Ali has been somebody called up recently, could you see other person making the transition at some point?
Nate?
That's a good question. Like I've been really impressed by Buddy Murphy. Like he was somebody who I didn't have a lot of faith in when he first came into the company. He wasn't somebody I pegged as this guy could be something big in the future. You know, he still has a ceiling, but I've been very impressed with his run as champion. I think it'll be a good match with Tozawa, who is another guy who I think is underutilized in the company. In terms of who could make that next step, in a perfect world, I'd like it to be Tozawa. But, you know, we've already talked about maybe some of the cultural or language issues that, you know, some of the Japanese performers have to butt up against. So I just think from a translation standpoint, Buddy Murphy would probably be the easier transition to the main roster. I don't know. I don't know what's the ceiling for either guy on the main roster, because I do think they might come in hot, but I don't see either guy going as far as Mustafa Ali has.
Well, Buddy Murphy is such a big cruiserweight. I think he would make that transition very seamlessly if they decided to take him seriously. Like he's not that much smaller than a Daniel Bryan. In fact, he might actually look bigger than a Daniel Bryan. So I think I'd love to see him transition to the main roster very in the near future. And Tozawa, I think, is always a guy who, you know, he might be undersized. His promo might not be as strong, but I think his English is probably the best among all the Japanese people that are on the roster. And I always wish that they paired him with Apollo Crews. You know, these two are like real life best friends, and I think a tag team between the two of them, even if you wanted to, like when they did Titus Worldwide, these guys would always hang out together, but we never saw them team together. And I think that's where the real magic would have occurred.
And that stuff with Titus Worldwide wasn't great, but they were actually getting some decent reactions. So yeah, I thought that was.
They broke them up.
I thought that was something. Yeah,
they clearly with ideas for all three who are just, you know, soaring on their own.
Hey, shout out to Titus O'Neil, who, with his relationship with Yolanda Adams. I'm sure they're having a wonderful Valentine's Day.
He was at the Grammys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him. That's Elimination Chamber. We'll see if they add any more matches in the time being before Sunday. It's the kickoff is at 6 Eastern, main show at 7, and Way and I will be live right after that show. While we have you, Nate, I did want to ask you and get your thoughts on the Double or Nothing sellout from earlier this week. Pre-sale tickets immediately scooped up in about 26 minutes, and then the general on sale tickets lasted for about 4 minutes. And Wei Ting, being the investigative reporter, checked in right on time when the tickets went on sale, and Wei got through, and he could have bought tickets, but he did not.
I ended up not buying them, but yeah, I didn't have to wait in queue or anything.
So you got right through, but it's a complete sellout, Nate. The arena is scaled for 11,600 people, and once they get all the production kills, they might open up some seats once the event, once all that stuff is set. But anyway, it's completely full at the moment. I haven't checked StubHub since Wednesday, but tickets were going as high as 1,500 US, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're even higher by now. Did you anticipate the immediate sellout? Because I don't know. I just haven't learned that. I thought after that last press conference that I thought they were going to sell this out within the first couple of days, but immediate sellout, you just don't know. That Vegas that weekend, are they going to get that same demand the second time? The answer was yes. It's incredible, the demand that there was for tickets. Like this is just a super hot ticket.
So first of all, you were saying Wei had the option to get Double or Nothing tickets, but he folded.
Oh, wow.
I what?
You folded on Double or Nothing.
Folded, yes.
Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
But yeah, I was not surprised at the sellout. Maybe like you, I was a little bit surprised at how fast the tickets went. But this is the hottest company in wrestling right now. You know, they might not have the worldwide reach of the WWE, but in terms of hardcore fans being passionate about a product, they're head and shoulders above everybody else right now. And they've got a buzz coming off of that press conference. They've still got that buzz coming off of All In. And so it didn't surprise me that the tickets went fast.
How would you have priced these, Nate? Because they kept these very affordable. It ranged from $36.70 And it tops out at $211.10, as Hangman Page explained to us in such a calm delivery. They could have charged double or triple these amounts, and maybe I'm being conservative, and I don't think they would have had trouble unloading at those escalated prices. But do you think that they're playing the long game here of keep these prices affordable, get people in? They're going to make more than enough off merchandise sales of these 11,600 people. And I think that there is something to this, that as a long-term message to your audience, that we know we could charge more for this, and we're opting not to in order to open this up to the widest amount of people.
Yeah, it's a couple things. One, it's that long game like you're talking about, and the Jacksons are very astute when it comes to finances, as well as we can't forget the Khan's involvement. Like, these aren't people that are stupid with money. So I think they're looking for long-term gains. But the other thing is, I don't think you want to burn out your audience so fast and make it think that this is a cash grab, or they've got their hands in our pockets so quickly. So yeah, it's a bit of engendering goodwill and a bit of smart financial planning. So I am not surprised. I think it's a good price point, and you're in the business right now of creating lifelong fans for this company. You just don't want to get a big amount of money for one time. You want these people to come back for more and more. And so I think this is the way you do it.
I agree with you. I think they're very smart right now. It'll be really interesting to see what demand is going to be like for the show after this one. Because
I'm not underestimating any longer. I think the next show is going to have, if they run the Sears Center again in September, I think it's going instantly again.
What about the Jacksonville show?
I don't know what the size of the venue is going to be. That's the show they've talked about. That's going to a lot of the proceeds are going to go to gun violence awareness and local charities there in the Jacksonville area. It's hard to know what kind of a scaled event is that going to be. Is that going to be closer to like a smaller house show? Is it going to be the big blowing up kind of all in double or nothing lineage that they're going to continue with and run a 10,000 seat venue? It's hard to say. I don't think they're going to have any issues selling tickets for the next time they run a venue of this size. I think the question will become months into it. Once they have weekly television, is there going to be, you inevitably hit that point. New Japan hit it in the US. That is every show going to be absolutely must see. It's very hard to do that every single month, make every single show must see. That's going to be the challenge, that the more you run, it's gonna offset demand because you're gonna be running that many more shows.
Yeah, and that's the thing with TV, because I think TV is so important. And I was hoping that there would be an announcement about TV when they had the press conference. But the one minor drawback to television is right now, all of these shows are, people are working on their imagination. Like, there's no storylines in place. There's no champions in place. We're working off of imagination. Once they get TV, we know what the product is. We have an established program. And so will there come a point where the week-to-week TV for All Elite is something that is not as exciting as the potential of, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen at Double or Nothing?
I think so. I think that's only natural. The more exposure that somebody gets, it's I think a very tough task to maintain that same freshness. Right now, we're still talking about the follow-up to All In, which was by all accounts one of the best shows in many people's minds who attended it. So I think this one would be natural. But if they go through that same level of exposure that the WWE has week to week, how is that going to affect demand for the product? I think they're probably very much aware of not burning their audience out the same way that the WWE has, and I think it'll be a challenge. But I feel like they're very well prepared for it.
Also knowing that the overall game, it's like the television deal is going to dictate everything. I mean, this is not a company that is living and dying off of selling 10,000 tickets and getting $1 million gate. It's securing a television deal that is going to pay them significantly more than that the television is going to make or break this thing. So, I mean, that is just where wrestling is in 2019 as a priority. Nate, we won't keep you any longer, but I definitely wanted to let you promote. I know you and Marcus have dove into the fine waters of Patreon, the Kings of Sport, now for everyone to be able to support. The floor is yours, Nate. Where can everyone catch more of Nate Milton, including this Saturday at postwrestling.com.
Yes. Well, again, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. For the folks that are interested in the Kings of Sport Patreon, you can check that out at patreon.com/the Kings of Sport. It's myself and Marcus Vanderberg. We've been doing the Kings of Sport for 5 years, and so we figured it was time to, take that next step. And we've got various tiers with various rewards you can check out. Up on the Patreon exclusive feed, currently we have a video recap of the NBA trade deadline. We've got a video edition of the normal Kings of Sport podcast with Marcus and myself. And we've also got a few episodes of the 20 Twin Twin, which is our political podcast with Chris from LA, who is a political science professor. And we're going down each of the announced and potential candidates for the 2020 Democratic nomination. So that's a fun little show if you're into politics, and you can check that out on the Kings of Sport Patreon. As well, as John mentioned, there is something that is going down this Saturday. It is the next edition, the next installment of the Rocky Maivia Picture Show, episode 2, featuring myself and Jay Hunter and V1 from OSW Review. And we are going to be looking at the American Cinema Classic, The Rundown, which is also known in the UK as Welcome to the Jungle. Starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Sean William Scott, Rosario Dawson, Christopher Walken, and a cameo by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So
I remember that cameo.
Yes,
Yeah. The
we'll
big passing of the torch.
The passing of the torch in one of the craziest little scenes that I can remember from those early Rock movies. So this is episode 2 of the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. If you missed episode 1, you can check it out with myself and Bryan Man talking about the Scorpion King. So I'm looking forward to going down each and every one of these Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson pictures, including the Tooth Fairy, which I've already got John Pollock booked for that one.
I'm booked.
Including Fighting for My Family, which I'm sure you'll eventually... Is that part of the list?
Yes, I am going to include Fighting for My Family. We probably won't get to it until... I was going to say, that's the good thing about this podcast. I've built in job security. So we'll probably get to Fighting with My Family around spring of 2022.
The ultimate podcast politician, Nate Milton. He's booked himself on top. Well, Nate, it's a great show. If you missed the premiere with Bryan Man, a great discussion. And yes, this coming Saturday, you can find that on the free Post Wrestling feed. Just go to postwrestling.com or subscribe to Post Wrestling on iTunes, and do check out the Kings of Sport on Patreon. Sports, politics, they cover it all. We support them.
Wrestling as well.
And wrestling as well. So Nate, enjoy Elimination Chamber this weekend, and we'll definitely be having you back soon as we get closer and closer to Impact's Rebellion.
So hopefully I won't have to rebel against Elimination Chamber this Sunday. But thanks for having me on, fellas. It's always good hanging out with you boys, and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, you too, Nate. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right.
That was Nate Milton. Always puts you in a great mood.
Love having Nate on. I love having him on. One of my favorite people. At this time, though, maybe we want to be joined by some of our other favorite people.
We have a few minutes left before we sign off. So if you want to give us a call, you can do so at 732-800-4423, or you can Skype. Just search for Post Wrestling and call in. We'll stick around for a couple minutes if anybody does want to call in or Skype in. Couple of things that are going down this weekend. Evolve is running their pair of cards, and those are going to feature Adam Cole as well, working those shows, as well as OTT's Homecoming 2 event, which has that awesome video package with Jordan Devlin and Mark Starr, as well as Walter taking on Pac.
Yeah, David Starr.
Sorry, did I say Mark Starr?
Yes.
David Starr.
Wow, and Walter versus Pac?
Yes.
That sounds like a tremendous show.
All right, our first caller. Who is this calling in?
John and Way, it's Des from California. What's up, guys?
Hey, Des, how are you?
What's up?
Good. I wanted to let you guys know, first of all, that I actually changed my lunch hour to coincide with this Hangout.
Oh, we can't change the time now.
So
We got to be locked in now.
Oh,
you can't. No, if you do that, I'll be so upset with you both.
Well, what time do you usually take lunch? Because isn't it noon right now?
Yeah, it's noon. I usually take lunch about 2:30. I like to usually have like most of my day behind me. So then when I come back to work, I only have to work for like 2.5 hours. But you guys are worth it, man.
Thank you.
You guys are worth it.
What's for lunch?
Well, today I actually had a double from In-N-Out here in California.
Oh, that type of
So
double.
I had a double while enjoying my status as a double, so it all worked out.
Man,
It's the LA double.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
What would you like to chat about
compared
this?
to the Toronto double?
Yes.
Hey, are you guys going to Vegas in May?
No, I don't think we're going to be going for Vegas. I think we're going to be covering that one back here. We are going WrestleMania weekend, so doing the 2 trips back-to-back months, we kind of just picked the one.
It's that. Plus, I think like we're really eyeing Wrestle Kingdom this year, so I think maybe saving some of our air miles for that. Not a guarantee yet, but it's something we're looking towards. And yeah, this is a show that I feel like,
well then.
Wade can only spend so much time with me on the road. It's there's a certain limit in his contract.
I've seen this guy in Vegas plenty of times. It's not a pretty sight.
Yes, we got married there once. Des, are you going to be going? Are you going to be going to the show?
Well, I didn't get any tickets yet, but I will definitely be keeping stuck to StubHub and places like that because I would like to sneak my way in, but I'm not willing to pay like $1,500.
Yeah, so I'm curious. What's your ceiling for an event like that? Like, obviously, it's a big show. What's kind of your limit that you'd go for a ticket to something like that?
I went to WrestleMania back in 2015 when they were in San Jose, and I think for that show I paid like maybe $300 a ticket, and it was 3 of us that went, and that was my cap. It was WrestleMania, and I was going more so for the experience of the weekend than even for the show.
Right.
But I got to see Sting, so that was cool. That was worth the investment. But it was that was my cap for this show. Like, it's the MGM though. It's AEW, and I just love the feel of it. It's super organic and it feels great. So I'd love to be there for that weekend as well, and just be a part of, even if I can't get into the show, just be a part of StarCast and hang out with everybody there.
Yeah, I think it's a really smart play of having, the two kind of piggyback off of one another with StarCast, which, I mean, I think it's very much like StarCast. They're not technically the same company, like they are separate, but to me, that's a deciding factor for people of, am I going to get in a plane and travel for just the show versus the weekend that comes with something like StarCast? I think that ultimately people are going to probably give in and decide it's worth it for the weekend as opposed to traveling for just the one show. I think helps a lot in the appeal to it.
And one more quick question for you guys too. Do you guys believe that Okada is still going to end up winning the New Japan Cup and then challenge Jay White at the Madison Square Garden show? Because I don't know if that's a big enough main event for this huge New York show.
Well, if not Okada, then who else would you say would be big enough to challenge Jay White for that show?
That's the thing. I can't think of anyone unless they surprise us with a Kenny Omega appearance. But I don't know if that's in the cards.
No, I think it's probably Okada or Ibushi. I think those are your two that you're looking for. I don't see Naito in that role. I guess like that's an option you could go with, but Naito has been like such a long-term journey for that title that I don't see that happening.
I also think that means a lot more in Japan for the audience.
I think New Japan
you have to beat him.
Yeah, like I don't think New Japan is necessarily looking like this is their Wrestle Kingdom or anything like that. Like, certainly you want to put something big in there, but they're doing something very different. I think the fans want the biggest match today, and that would be Tanahashi Okada. And what they're doing is, we want Jay White to be at that level. And part of it is putting stock in Jay White, such as headlining a Madison Square Garden, where we are telling the audience he is at this level. And that's always the difficult part is the public at the same level as the booker in terms of who are your stars and who are your stars you're trying to make. So I would say if Okada is headlining that show with them, I think Jay White losing the title at Madison Square Garden, I think you kind of just shoot yourself in the foot that you've kind of teased it with Jay White, and for him to lose it so quickly, I think that does a lot more harm to him to lose to Okada.
Who's to say he has to lose though? I'm
not saying that at all. Yeah. I think if it's him and Kota Ibushi, and it's Ibushi kind of just he's kind of the last remaining golden lover that's going there to try and take the title, I think they'd have a hell of a match.
I do too. But I think, like, going back to Dez's point, I think it's what sounds the sexiest on, like, a marquee. I do feel like Okada slightly edges Ibushi just, on name value alone. So I could do that. I would say maybe do that. But then that leaves Ibushi for another match. And I think that would be a perfect opportunity to do a rematch with Will Ospreay as your sort of semi-main event that I think would be strong enough. Yeah, that would be more than strong enough to attract people, even if for people who aren't so interested in Jay White in a headlining bout.
Not that I know this is happening or anything like that, but in the case where you may look at, well, we're not totally stoked with Jay White being in the main event of the show. The other question is, what do you have for someone like a Tanahashi, for instance? Like, I don't even know if Chris Jericho can work that show. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, is that considered a Ring of Honor show? Is it a New Japan show?
Well,
but if you can have a match like that, I think that erases all people's doubt that if you have Tanahashi and Jericho, no title involved, that becomes the de facto main event for a lot of people, or something of that level that even if it's not the title match, it becomes the main event to people because it's a big match that you can still promote, even though Jay White has the title.
Do either of you guys think we will either see Kenny or Jericho as a part of that show right now? How about you, Des?
Right on. I personally, I mean, if they can get past the logistics and bring in a Jericho or an Omega, I would definitely see them on that show. I would even see like a Golden Lovers match on that show, like a tag match. And I would I like the idea of doing Okada Tanahashi in the United States, but then there's the issue. Like, I guess now neither one has anything to lose since neither has titles and they can just have a match. But now there's kind of no point.
Like, I see them teaming on that show if Okada's not in the main event. I could see that being the team. Like, it doesn't seem like there's any reason to do the match now if not for a title.
Yeah.
So
other than just to be like an exhibition for where they're at. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for the call, Des.
Guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Des.
Yeah, I would peg Kenny Omega at like 0 to be on that show. Jericho, I would say, I think it all comes down to, if he's allowed to do the show, I think there becomes a possibility, but it's such a politically difficult match to book because he's got a headline Double or Nothing. And I think Jericho is not going to just do a show. Like, New Japan is not going to be booking him in a certain way, knowing that he's not around for the next tour, or he's a very difficult individual to book, even though he brings a lot of value to a show like that.
I guess it would be a different case if this show wasn't sold out yet. The fact that it is already sold out tells me that, would you want to kind of dive into those politics and potentially affect your relationship with Ring of Honor for, an unnecessary financial box office gain? I'm thinking if we don't see either Kenny or Jericho at this point.
Yeah. I think, though, if you're Ring of Honor, especially, like, you want this to be the big show that weekend. But
do you want it to, do you want people to leave that show thinking about Chris Jericho as the top star coming out of it? A guy who's a headliner for a rival company.
It's really tricky. You can see to give the best fan experience, it would be to work something out with AEW, but that doesn't really jive with their business at the moment. So
I want to go to the chat room. Ryan is informing us. Did you see the Undertaker's post this morning on his Twitter?
Briefly.
It's a photo of Undertaker with Michelle McCool on a private jet or some type of plane, saying, "Landed late last night. Must be meeting with somebody important today. Hashtag on the road again." I don't know if this particularly means anything, but I think more so I'm interested in your thoughts on just the Undertaker and his social media maybe changes as of late, taking WWE off of his page and being open to inquiries and booking outside.
I think with the Undertaker, I think that's probably more just comes down to, as you're taking more outside bookings and stuff, being able to use WWE in terms of advertising yourself as such. I don't read tons into it. I think he's just looking at doing a lot more appearances at the moment.
Would not expect him to wrestle anywhere else.
I mean, you never say never.
What is his contract? Do we know? What type of deal he might have?
It's typically that he gets his big downside every year, and it calls for. I mean, he did a number of matches last year,
but could he wrestle elsewhere?
Again, it depends on what his contract status is. I mean, everyone believes he is under a deal to them, but it seems like it's just I don't know the specifics of his contract, so
Hmm.
you can't even state that. He's a very tricky person to imagine doing stuff elsewhere.
It's tough for me to imagine him doing anything that he posts photos of himself doing on social media. Like him being on a plane is weird to me. The man should just like teleport from place to place. Him like on Instagram doing anything is odd. Just him existing.
What if he had the like
He's with
cat whiskers on his face?
He's hanging out with Post Malone. He's giving Post Malone a choke slam on his Twitter.
Well, wouldn't you do the same?
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So cool. Anything else on your mind, John?
Just some last few news items here. Ring of Honor have announced the following matches for their next pay-per-view, which is March the 15th. Jay Lethal versus Matt Taven for the ROH title. The Briscoes defending the tag titles against PCO and Brody King, and Bandito versus Roosh.
Cool.
That should be an interesting show. And MLW's next event, March 2nd, will feature Tom Lawler versus Loki in a steel cage match at Cicero Stadium. And that's going to be airing live on BN Sports. So
interesting.
Yeah. So not a crazy amount of news, but a lot going on this weekend between WWE's Elimination Chamber. You have the OTT show, which sounds super hot. Yep. You've got the Will Ospreay and Pac match that's happening tomorrow at York Hall.
For which promotion?
That is for RevPro.
RevPro. Cool.
And then you have the Evolve shows with Adam Cole that we mentioned. And then UFC is Sunday night. I think I'm more intrigued by the UFC show than I am the WWE show on Sunday. And Bellator's got Friday and Saturday nights. So
busy weekend.
Busy weekend.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on?
One last question from Brandon D in the chat room, who wants to know, who would you guys put with Cody at Double or Nothing? They're teasing it. Obviously, they probably have somebody in mind already.
I think it's someone off roster that you're.
It has to be.
Yeah, that's got to just be the surprise.
So the clue is that it's somebody personal, or some issue that is personal. I mean, the automatic kind of person you would think of is Dustin Reynolds.
But yeah, I think that'd be such a weird match to do. I think people don't want to see them oppose each other.
I would have a certain curiosity, absolutely, but we don't know like his contract status either, do we? Gold Dust.
I mean, he's under contract at WWE at the moment,
right?
So I don't know when that contract's up though.
Stephen Amell might be another name. I don't know how much interest there is in that one.
No.
Who else would be personal? Ted DiBiase Jr.
These are all, with the exception of Dustin, bad ideas. Like if you're doing the mystery opponent, you better have something great, because for 2 months or however long they're going to milk this, you're just going to have people's expectations grow and grow and grow. Yeah. So you better have a great payoff when you do the mystery surprise.
They'll certainly announce it. Like I would hope soon, But anyway,
yeah, they should do teases like along the way and keep people guessing and stuff before it gets out, because I feel it will get out at some point. Yeah, it's odd because I don't see. Maybe it's Sting.
Sting.
I mean,
is that personal? Maybe it's DDP, part of his nightmare family. Maybe it's Glacier.
Yeah, that's gonna be it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Glacier and Stardust.
We've been recording for a little too long, I would say.
These are lengthy days on Thursdays. All right. We've got to wrap things up, but thank you to all of you that joined us live, called in. Thank you to Nate Milton as well. Follow him, N8 MOZAIK. And Way and I are going to be back on Friday. All of you Café members, we will have Rewind Away with a review of the WWE's King of the Ring show from 2002 to look forward to. And then Saturday, it's the Rocky Maivia picture show with Nate Milton. And Sunday night, right after Elimination Chamber, we are live for our Double Ice Cap and Espresso members, running down the show from Houston, Texas. So for Wai Ting, I am John Pollock. Thanks for hanging out.